Today's world is facing big challenges. Using technology to make our communities smarter, safer, more efficient, equitable, and sustainable is no easy task. And for the pioneering visionaries that have taken on this challenge, we salute you. Welcome to Conversations with Smart City Pioneers, where we sit down with the best and brightest minds from around the globe, sharing how they are leading the smart city digital transformation revolution.
Hello, Harry. How are you?
Great, Herb. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are with Harry Meier, the Deputy CIO for the City of Mesa, Arizona. Before we get going, let me just frame for the viewers a little bit. You are the Deputy CIO of Innovation. Mesa is the third largest city in Arizona. And Arizona in its own right is really one of the most progressive states that I've ever worked with in the smart city and digital transformation space. But being the third largest city in Arizona, and you guys are growing very, very fast, and you've done a lot of great things in the past couple of years, you truly are a smart city pioneer. So welcome to Conversations with Smart City Pioneers. We're glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
Well, thanks so much. So Harry, tell me a little bit about, before we get going, if you could, just share with us a little bit about, what is your role and what do you do for the City of Mesa?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a Deputy CIO for Innovation for the City of Mesa's Department of Innovation and Technology. So that broadly speaking is managing the portfolio of smart cities projects, as well as leading architectural strategy for city IT. So, that encompasses everything from small innovation project ideas, interacting with student projects and startups, all the way up through facilitating big efforts like smart meters and public broadband. So yeah, I've been with the city for 15 years, working in systems and enterprise architecture prior to smart cities. And yeah, before that, I've been in IT consulting in the private sector for a while before that even, and doing system solution design for Fortune 500 and startups back in the .com boom days and whatnot.
Well, I was going to say, based on your public sector and private sector experience, it's always got to be very helpful, because it seems like these days, a lot of the smart city projects are really requiring these public-private partnerships. So it seems like you're very well suited. No surprise.
Absolutely, yeah.
So with that, obviously the City of Mesa, when I look around Maricopa County, I mean, there's a lot of great things going on, but even among, your peers and Phoenix and all the other great communities in the area, you all even stand out even more. Tell me a little bit about that dynamics in Mesa that really lend itself to really needing this focus on digital transformation and really some of the smart city technologies.
Sure. Well, in Mesa, we like to call it the biggest little town you'll ever live in. In terms of size, like as you mentioned, we're the third largest in Arizona. Really, we're neck and neck for two. We're almost as big as Tucson. We're, in terms of size, we're in the top 40 biggest cities in the U.S. And we have about 500,000 residents. But you'd never know it, owing to our big neighbor Phoenix there. But culturally, we retain a lot of that small town feel. Our downtown is just filled with local businesses, lining Main Street. We got strong neighborhoods and communities throughout the city that all have their own identity. From Eastmark and the Red Mountain areas to our east side, and Falcon Field and Central Mesa, downtown, Riverview, Fiesta, Asian District, Dobson Ranch. I can name every one of them, and you can be 20 miles from home, look around and think you're in a totally different town and realize that you're still in Mesa. So when it comes to the smart city technologies and the digital transformation, it's we have these microcosms of different cultures, different needs that speak to all the different challenges in the communities writ large. So it makes it a great testing ground for technologies, as well as offering, with our size, the ability to up things to scale.
Well, that certainly makes a lot of sense. I've noticed that as you mentioned, in the city of Mesa, you would never know that you are such a large city. And, despite being, I think I looked at 538,000 according to the 2021 census, the traffic seems to flow. There's a distinct cultural feel depending on which part of the community that you're driving through or sitting down to have lunch or whatever it may be. Tell me a little bit about why did smart city technologies really come to the forefront? You all have been doing this for a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your history of looking at smart cities or digital transformation. I'm not sure what the best term is these days. But tell me a little bit about what you all were thinking about and some of the projects that you guys have done.
Sure. Historically, we when smart cities started taking off as kind of a buzzword, really hit its peak about 5 years ago. We started looking around and hearing this buzzword, going through city circles and looking at the projects that other towns were doing, and we would get people would tout the big pilot that they ran.
Right.
That
a lot of pilots in the
a lot of pilots
history here.
testing out things like intelligent traffic systems, and utilizing the right of way for fiber optic, and various systems, smart irrigation, lighting controls, getting deeper into public utility SCADA systems, big data. Well, when we looked at all of those things that people were doing in pilots, a lot of them Mesa had been doing for literally decades in some cases, looking at fiber and, intelligent traffic systems and SCADA. Mesa was built on a public utility model. So we don't have a primary property tax. Instead, we leverage our utility billing for water, gas, and electric, and as one of our primary funding sources. So IoT is kind of built into the DNA of data of Mesa, and as well as all the data that goes along with it. So when I think back to the beginnings, digital transformation for Mesa, for me personally, probably began over 10 years ago, just with modernization projects, bringing some processes out of the old paper and mainframe days, building that infrastructure, and the roadmaps kind of needed to continue that journey. The last 5 years, though, when we took notice of what other people were touting as these innovative projects, that's when it really took off as a thing within Mesa. Looking at all that we had done and actually trying to advertise it, that hey, Mesa is an innovative place to be, that we are kind of at the forefront of a lot of these technologies and these ways of doing things. So I think that's given me and Mesa a pretty strong perspective on what works and what doesn't for us. We've never jumped at technology for its own sake. We've built infrastructure and services to solve resident problems. And with my department, we call it "Do It" for a reason.
Right.
We're here to enable all those departments out there in the field, on the ground, keeping the city running.
Well, tell me a little bit about some of the specific projects, and one of the things that we, as we work throughout the country and we talk to other cities, and there's a lot of cities that are really beginning to build up their projects or expand the projects they've already started, that maybe start as a pilot, or maybe they started off as a project with the intent to really get the full impact and not just test a project technology out. But tell me if you have a little bit of a laundry list of some of those projects that you guys have done, and I'm especially interested in if any of them really proved to be very fortuitous given the pandemic that we're all still seemingly dealing with.
Sure. I mentioned, some of that modernization, being ahead of the game there really paid off going into the pandemic. We already had, the infrastructure and the remote working capability in
Mhm.
place. We just had to ramp up a little to have our whole workforce
So,
work
so what
remotely.
I'm hearing is one of the projects was really the virtualization for like e-government, being able to obviously,
Mhm.
really get the folks that are supporting the services that the city is providing to the citizens to be able to work from home.
Yeah, quite a while ago, we looked at the mobile workforce as the future,
Mhm.
way pre-pandemic, and we're already on the road to there. Being a city where I think my city manager quoted saying about 85% of our employees are people who are like on the ground, essential workers, public safety, people out in the field actually keeping the place running, um, that for whom remote work doesn't really apply.
Mhm.
Um, but for the rest, we had long understood. We're an IT department. We know it firsthand what it's like to need to be able to remotely manage things. I used to work in servers, and I don't remember the last time I physically laid hands on a server. It's all, you know, infrastructure as code, so to
Sure.
speak. Um, so so that piece was already well underway. So, the mobile applications, we had a platform, um, we call it Mesa Now,
Mhm.
that pulled together our into one mobile app, our utilities billing platform, various GIS and other systems that could display information to the residents about where they are in the city, where their address is, when's their garbage pickup, who's their council member, what phone numbers should they have at the ready to interact with their city. And then right there is, here's your utility bill, and where's the parks,
And that's all
all of
available.
these things that
That's
you
all in
deal
the
with.
app that the citizen, the business could
Mhm.
use on their phone. Is that correct?
Right. And so, the mobile, not only the mobile workforce, but the internet enabled resident
Mhm.
was already high on our mind pre-COVID. So when COVID hit, um, we just hit the ground running. The Especially once the CARES Act dollars came down from Washington, owing to our size, we did get direct funding, and like I said, hit the ground running. We were able to just ramp up a lot of what we were already doing, and we built from the ground up a uh, a grant uh, intake case management system to deliver that money out to the citizens in less than 2 months, because we already had the groundwork done. We were able to use our library employees, because the libraries and the other public facilities shuttered. So rather than laying people off, we put them to work, uh, created a phone bank. We already had the systems in place to have uh, an outreach group and a mobile workforce call center. So we had librarians working from home, uh, calling the community, finding out where the greatest need was in the community, and had the systems in place to hand out that money
Sure.
within months.
And and
So
and
big
speaking of
success story there.
and speaking of the library, so tell us a little bit about what you all did during the pandemic, because I think what you all
Yeah,
did is a little bit unusual and very progressive, and this might even,
yeah,
point to the future of how some of these libraries may work.
yeah. I mean, owing to our smart city master planning, one of the topics that came up from our libraries was, the number one request that they get is for expanded hours.
Mhm.
And they just, owing to budgets and the staffing, they were never able to do that. So one of the items on their kind of smart city wish list was systems to enable a staffless library hours. So for those students who need to come in after hours and finish that term paper at the last minute, and people who have signed up for a library card, maybe go through some training, sign a waiver about their use of the library facilities, and be able to just have a system that lets them into the library, has them on camera, does automated checkout if they're checking out books, just be able to use the facilities without having to have people there 24/7. And then this is in addition to the regular library hours. So we had that on the books as one of the we knew how we would go about it. It was just one of those ideas that was, coming down the road. Well, along comes the opportunity of CARES Act and the need of the pandemic, and that same technology can be used to monitor how many people are in the library. And so when we tried to do a limited reopening of the libraries with social distancing, with limited occupancy, we were able to just put that system that we already knew about, had spec'd out and ready to go, put it in place, and now you walk up to the library doors and you get green light, red light. We're at capacity.
Wow.
As soon as somebody walks out, it turns green and the door opens and you can walk in.
Wow.
So we know exactly how many people are in there, and we can maintain that social distancing. Another similar in another similar vein, our building automation systems were already well underway when the pandemic hit, and we were able to just bolt on the additional capabilities to increase the airflow, and from central management be able to change the airflow characteristics and have some of the sensing of the air in our buildings, to help assure the public that these are safe places to come and do business with the city.
And some of technologies like that obviously not only saves energy, but improves, the experience of the library. And sometimes what we found is the most important technologies are often invisible. And I feel like you all have probably more than your fair share of invisible technologies and big projects. And I'm just going to kind of read off a few that I am familiar with you all. If I understand correctly, you're installing about 250,000 smart meters over the course of the next couple of years, right? That's one of them.
Yeah.
You've got parking systems that you all are working on right now. I know that certainly when you start putting meters and parking systems, the public sometimes gets a little concerned, and your privacy policy, sometimes that doesn't sound very important until it becomes incredibly important. But you all spent a lot of time putting that in place. But really, some of these foundational things that are invisible, that don't always get the headlines, but they really provide real value, whether it's financial or psychological, but the quality of life, all of it. Tell us a little bit about some of these other big projects that you all are working on, and what are you most excited about?
Wow. Well, yeah, you named off a few of the big ones, with the smart metering. We, being a public utility, we do water, gas, and electric for the better part of the city. And that we had kind of been slow on the uptake of smart metering technology. There was a big push for it a number of years ago, and mostly on the electric side. And because our electric is our smallest utility, it's only a few square miles, it didn't really catch on with us. But now with water becoming such a big deal here in the desert and with climate change, yes, the need to to have much better data about the water consumption and where is our water coming from, where is it going, where are the leaks in the system. That data is going to be huge in helping us, maintain that service, and that, level of service and the way of life here in this valley. That's we get regularly 115 degrees in the summer, and man, if we didn't have access to water, it wouldn't happen.
Right. Right. Well, you all, I know that you all place a lot of emphasis, especially from a leadership view, the climate action plan that you all put together, whether it's back to power grid, water, dealing with the heat, the building envelope and the building automation, all that. Tell us a little bit about, from a standpoint of the connectivity. I know that's a big hotbed these days. There's a lot of different technologies that are coming out. There's a lot of talk about everything from, how do you get connectivity, particularly during the pandemic? Are there any projects that you all are working on right now that you're really excited about on the connectivity? Because that seems to be one of the biggest areas, especially with the infrastructure bill that recently passed, that the recognition that connectivity, without that, you've got really nothing these days.
Yeah, so connectivity is really a hot button issue right now. It's another area where there's a lot of funding right now, like you mentioned with the infrastructure bill. There was a lot of emphasis put on it in the American Rescue Plan Act, even going back to the CARES Act. So all the pandemic response, it really shone a spotlight on the need for more broadband, not just in the rural communities, but in underserved urban communities as well. So you can see the maps of the city of Mesa and other large cities, both with the FCC and other, and with the U.S. Census, that shows where the need is, and where the incumbent land-based ISP providers haven't provided service. So yeah, we've undertaken that responsibility as well. With the ARPA dollars, we've pushing out 10 square miles of connectivity, both in public Wi-Fi as well as the CBRS, the Citizen Broadband Radio Service, basically a 4G LTE cellular network operated by the city to help with the public schools, and having a resource like that available for the students who don't have it in their homes, in those areas of the city that are least served by the private sector and have that most need.
Well, you all certainly are getting a lot done, and both anticipating the needs of the future and certainly dealing with things that are front and center right now, which leads me to thinking about the future. Obviously, hopefully we don't have any more pandemics of new types that are on the horizon, but when you think about Mesa's future and your role, and especially, as the Deputy CIO of Innovation, you're expected to especially see around a little bit of the curve. What are the projects that you think that aren't on the docket right now that you're thinking about, or perhaps considering or investigating, or maybe there's a technology that you're waiting to come into prime time? What are some of the things that you think are the future of smart cities, either for Mesa or even for the rest of the country?
It's hard to talk about the future without getting into technologies that are going to change it. But I don't generally like talking about specific technologies. When I think about my vision for the future of smart cities, and especially Mesa, it goes back to an engaged community. Smart cities has never really been about cool new tech. It's about how that local government can get the job done. So to do that, we need to know who you are, what job you need to get done, and you know, we need to know what makes that city worth living in for you. So when I think of like an ideal future for smart cities, it's one where like our priorities as public servants align with the needs of the people living, working, visiting here. You know, um, I'm biased in that I still see technology helping with that. You know, if I have to point to some technologies that'll help enable that, you know, one I'm on the lookout for is, you know, better ways to get that engagement. You know, social media was the big thing 5 years ago, but we've seen the direction that that's gone in. Nowadays, you try to reach out to people on social media and you get nothing. So, you know, I'm on the lookout for where is the next big way to connect with people, how to get people engaged.
Sure.
You know, AI is going to be a huge game changer when it comes to all of those invisible little things like you were talking about, that today it's an invisible little worker who goes down the street that you may not notice, you know, tuning something at the street corner. You know, that same worker can be back in an office tuning 500 street corners at the same time, you know, or optimizing those systems on the fly, you know, with the aid of machine learning. You know, the parking system that you referred to. You know, in olden days, we'd have to put up a fence around the parking lot and have an arm and various systems, and maybe a person in a booth, you know, checking in every car coming and going. We have that meter maid driving around, chalking people's tires or whatever. With machine vision and machine learning, I can just take a picture of a parking lot and say, how many cars are there right now? Things like that are game changers to the efficiency of the government, and that will enable us to do more. Not just talking about, you know, replacing what we've been doing, but, you know, freeing up those people who doing busy work today who can be, you know, enabling so much more.
You know, it's interesting. There was a fear that technology was going to take people's jobs, and that certainly can be true. But it seems like technology is just taking the jobs of people, frankly, don't want to perform these days. I know the labor shortage is real. Although I really don't understand, you know, all the different reasons that people, you know, are quitting their jobs, but it seems like the high quality jobs will never go away, but the lower quality, sometimes the things that are frankly prone to error or more mundane or less attractive, maybe we're at a point now, the inflection point where it's okay for machines to take over the jobs that nobody wants, or frankly, they're better suited to do to begin with and nobody wants.
And I wouldn't even say it's taking those jobs. You know, it's just transforming them. You know, take the smart metering, for example. We had a pretty good sized staff that walked the streets, the meter readers, and that was one of the highest turnaround jobs in the city. We would go through, you know, the whole staff in a single year. Turnover, you know, owing to needing to walk out in that 150-degree heat in the summer to check water meters.
Sounds brutal, yeah.
It is, and that's the sort of thing, you know, it's not just, it's a job that nobody wants. The people who do want it realize they didn't really want it, you know, in short order. So taking those same folks and putting them to work in a meter shop, working on the more technological meters, or putting them on a central dashboard where they can help manage the data flowing in from those 250,000 meters. That's a much better job. It's one that can be done remotely even. So there's tons of opportunity there. It's not replacing any, you know, at the end of the day, we will still have the same head count of employees or more, but the jobs will be higher quality ones.
That's a really important takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let me, as a smart city pioneer that you are, and having been in the smart city space now for a little bit, and with an eye for the future, one of the biggest things that we get asked is, what are some of the lessons learned? What are the things that you wish that you had known a couple of years ago when you started down this path that you might be able to share with the audience? If there were a couple key insights, points of wisdom,
Sure.
that would be good lessons learned, or hey, you need to be thinking about this, and that'd be great to be able to wrap this up and give that takeaway. Because again, sometimes, you know, the old joke about being a pioneer, sometimes you get shot, you know, in the front and the back, because, you know, you're conquering new territory while you're scaring people along the way. So
Right.
you've taken a lot of shots along the way, but you know, the Mesa platform has really benefited from it. So tell us a little bit about some of the key nuggets that you can share.
I'd say, you know, a big one for me was that there are no one-size-fits-all solutions out there. You know, I'd love to find a company that's, you know, capable of doing that smart metering, but also control my street lights and irrigation and a million other IoT sensors. And there's plenty of technologies and companies that'll come along and say that they can do that. But at scale, just the little minor differences in the way they do those different things amplify. And so it comes back to the operational need of those people on the ground doing that work. So, you know, running a central city IT department is like servicing 30 or 40 private business customers. Every one of those departments has totally different operational needs. And you know, those needs have to come first or second, you know, after like the residents' needs. And you know, occasionally technology is a channel that delivers, you know, the news of the changing needs in that community. But those needs of those departments come first. So it breaks my heart to have to deploy redundant systems. You know, that smart metering one is separate from my smart streetlights one. But those two teams had such different needs that making them both pick a lesser solution for either of their operational needs to find something that both of them that would do both just wasn't going to happen.
That's a great point.
So yeah, that's one lesson learned, is just don't be afraid of those, you know, quote unquote redundant systems. There is no one size fits all at scale. You know, again, you'll hear a lot of people doing pilots who can say, you know, hey, this technology will work for X, Y, Z, and Z prime, but you try to scale that up, it's not going to happen. And you know, that kind of goes that those messaging out to those communities that those departments are servicing, that's where, you know, you hear it back. So you know, I can't get stuck in doing things one way, because you know that those departments will so back to the street lights, perfect example. They thought, you know, the energy savings and the technology was such that we should just roll out LED streetlights. First deployment, the neighborhood came back up in arms because that was at the edge of the city where we had a night sky group. And so, you know, you have to go back and look at the details of, you know, what is the community really asking for before you jump to technology. So, you know, above anything else, you know, that's my key takeaway from being in smart cities, is you have to be listening to those people first before you're going to technologies.
Well, back to the engagement. If you can not only listen, but also provide a you know, a mechanism or a conversation, because it's a dialogue. And I think
Absolutely.
we're all figuring this out together. I know that, you know, no one knows where technology is going, and even, we as people, we don't even know what the next best thing that we even want or need based on the technology too. So I'm hearing redundancy, communication, being able to engage and listen, and certainly, appreciating the technology. You don't want to settle for two good things when you can get, two individual great things. They just may be from different vendors, and you just have to deal with it. But really, Internet of Things technology shouldn't be the driving force. It should be the underlying technology, the solution that is enabled by IoT. So that's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So those are great comments. Any last words of wisdom or any last comments as we wrap up here as a smart city pioneer? Anything at all? You can tell us about your next great big project. You can talk about anything you're especially excited for, or anything at all. Any last words?
I would just reiterate what we were just saying. If you see somebody coming at you with technology and they're holding up the technology as this panacea, as the thing that's going to solve problems without talking about the problems first, it's a red flag.
We have to understand the problem to find the right tool. So, okay. Well, great. Well, Harry, thanks so much. This has been a true pleasure. Again, as a smart city pioneer, it's been great to have a conversation with you. Again, with us today was Harry Meier, Deputy CIO with the City of Mesa. Check out Mesa, go visit it, go enjoy it. You might see some of the great technology that is on the show today, or you might not even see any of it at all. If it's really doing stuff, it might be invisible too. But Harry, thanks so much for joining us today and having a conversation with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.